Hey everyone, and welcome to the first episode of our podcast. My name is Emery, and I'll be your host for the first ever season of the First Global podcast. For this week's episode, we are interviewing Jeff May, the current president of our organization, First Global, who joined us in March of this year. Previously, Jeff was Vice President of Global Public Policy at the leading global biopharmaceutical company Merck, where he oversaw the global and regional policy and government affairs teams. Jeff also previously served as the chair of the International Federation of Pharmaceutical Manufacturers and Associations Council and as the U.S. representative to the World Trade Organization's permanent group of experts on subsidies and countervailing measures. Welcome, Jeff. We're going to go ahead and jump into our questions for you today. The first is that clearly you've had a lot of really amazing work experience, and now you're here with us at First Global. And I know that one of the reasons you decided to join First Global is because you felt truly inspired by the organization's work. Can you describe what inspired you about First Global?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Emery. And I don't know if you've seen Dean Kamen speak about First Global and its mission, but he is extremely persuasive about what we do and why we do it. And it's truly amazing to see someone of his success, his capabilities, spending so much time on First Global. That really is inspiring to me. But I also have a personal connection. I have spent more than a decade working at one of the leading science and technology companies in the biotechnology field, pharmaceuticals, Merck, but also I had the privilege to work under a truly inspiring CEO, Ken Frazier. And a couple of years ago, we were on a trip to France, and he spoke to our local affiliate at a town hall and was asked, Ken, when you retire, what are you going to do? And he, without missing a beat, said, I want to work on educational opportunity, and told the story about his siblings, where two of them, the older siblings, went to schools in inner city Philadelphia, and Ken and his younger sister were bused outside of Philly to much better schools. And he went on to Harvard and onto a great career leading a company like Merck, and his sister went to Yale and had a similarly great career. But his two other siblings really didn't have the same educational opportunity or career paths. Yet, as he emphasizes, they're equally smart and capable. So the lesson learned is, educational opportunity is everything. I've experienced it in my life. And to have the chance to work with a program where at its heart is about expanding the ability of students around the world to get excited about STEM education, STEM careers, really is the type of passion that I'm thrilled to be able to spend my energy and effort on.
Yeah, I love that and completely resonate with just the importance of what an education gives us and all the opportunity that comes with it. I also wanted to give our listeners a little more background as to what you do and who you are. Can you describe what your day-to-day tasks and responsibilities look like?
Leading First Global, the most important thing that I do, as you might imagine, is setting out what are our overarching priorities and goals for the program, and naturally do that with the input of my team members as well as from other expert advisors. But when it comes down to it, the biggest task that I have is to make sure that this very talented team that I have the privilege of leading has the resources that they need to be able to do their jobs effectively. And part of that is to make sure that we have the funding to be able to carry out the program. And I spend quite a bit of my time with Dean working to make sure that we have that kind of support and the resourcing to move things forward. The good news is I've been so pleased to see that we have amazing support for the program from a variety of foundations, corporations, and even individuals. I recently had the chance to give them a briefing about the program and where we are heading with our efforts, and was astounded that these insanely busy people, almost all of them showed up to the meeting, and I had the chance to get to know them virtually. So that is one important element of what I do, which is to make sure that we have that infrastructure, the funding and human capital and other resourcing to move things forward. But the second thing sort of goes back to setting goals and priorities, is that as we decide, where we want to take the program, I really have to make sure that life's frustrations, which we all experience, really do not get in the way and cause us to lose focus or an ability to move our efforts forward. So let me give you a tangible example: the pandemic. We're all seeing our lives thrown into turmoil by the pandemic, and First Global is no different. We've had to adjust and deal with the realities of the situation. And for me, part of that was I've now been at First Global for several months, and I haven't met my team in person. But I have been able to meet them virtually, and through that mechanism have come to see that they're all amazing professionals who know what they're doing. I think we're up to now 6 people that are working on this effort, which is an extremely small team for something of the size of First Global. But the fact that they are so experienced and capable, I'm just really pleased to know that we can, get the job done. The second part, though, that we had to deal with is, once again, sadly, we can't be in person for our First Global event. We had to come up with a virtual program, and I know we'll probably have the chance to talk about it a bit more, but I'm really proud and excited of the program that we've put together this year. I think it will serve our high school students around the world well as they engage again in the STEM field.
Yeah, certainly. And it's already been a really great privilege to work with everyone. I mean, I'm just an intern, but I've also definitely really enjoyed that work experience, even though it's virtual. And speaking of just like First Global's mission as it is, like overall, as you know clearly, to inspire science and technology leadership and innovation in young people from all nations in order to increase understanding, instill the importance of cooperation, address the world's most pressing issues, and improve the quality of life for everyone. So what are the more specific short and long-term goals for First Global?
Thanks, Emery. And it is really our privilege to have you with us as an intern for the summer. You're exactly the type of person that we're trying to inspire and reach. So I hope that this summer does lead to further chances for us to work together. So in terms of near-term goals, I think those are fairly easily stated. The first one is to have a successful 2021 season. And we're off to a great start. I think we have something like 160 teams around the world that have signed up from countries and more coming in. We're still not done registering. But I think the program that we're offering, has every element that should be successful. The second, though, near-term goal is to really lay the groundwork for 2022. And our hope, and I'm optimistic that we can pull it off, to have an in-person event next year. I'm happy to say a few more words about that later. But turning to the longer term, that's more complex. There are many different things that I would like to see happen over the long term. So I'll sort of break it down into 3 buckets, if you will. One of them, back to funding, you have to make sure that that box is clearly checked and dealt with. Is I want to be sure that we have the funding to have a sustainable and growing program over the years. We still have the ambition to keep reaching more and more countries around the world, but also importantly, and working with our sister association FIRST and other stakeholders, we'd like to go deeper into countries that are participating, and would like to see what a number are already doing, but more could do, which is to have a national robotics competition for their students that would then in turn feed into First Global and the global championship that we're hosting. So we'd like to go wider in terms of the countries we cover, but also be able to go deeper in terms of the reach with the robotics mission. So that's one sort of longer term goal. The second is to get more students engaged in our program. And particularly one of our priorities has been and will continue to be is to have strong female participation in the STEM area. That is one of the indicators that is really lagging, is having enough women and girls participating in the STEM arena. So I think that is an area for continued emphasis and growth for us. And one other thing I'll mention is that not only are we wanting to continue to do the types of robotics competitions that we do in an annual event, but we are looking at other offerings that we can make around the year so that students can stay engaged and inspired as we go along. So, stay tuned, all of you out there. We'll be saying more about that as the season continues to unfold.
Yeah, it's so great to hear the expansion and scope of where it is that you're planning to take First Global.
Yeah, it's exciting. I think the last thing I'll mention, Emery, is just we already have universities that are engaged in our program. In the U.S., we get a lot of great support from Yale and Worcester Polytech Institute, and we have other universities outside of the U.S. that are engaged. But to me, that's another area that we could really see growth, is getting a wider network of universities to participate with us. And that can bring a number of positives, one being having graduate students, professors that are available to be technical support for our teams as they're doing the different contests, as well as volunteer judges and things like that. But back to the earlier long-term goal I mentioned, if we'd like to see more national robotics competitions taking root, a university in a particular country is uniquely well situated to help foster that type of opportunity for students in their country. And exposure for a university to us is the chance to have access to some of the most talented potential students down the road. So there's a huge win for universities that engage in the program with us as much as there is for us.
Yeah, for sure. Like engaging and incorporating the help of higher education is an amazing goal. And now going a little bit further into the short-term goals with what's going on this year. The First Global Challenge consists of the three main components: the Solutions Challenge, CubeSat Prototype Challenge, and Robotics Challenge. Now, each of these parts will contribute to our overarching goal of encouraging students to be interested and invested in STEM in different ways. What was the team's thought process behind including all of these three different components?
I'd say first, we saw the pandemic as the 800-pound gorilla in the room. It's affecting all of us. So we did feel that doing something around the pandemic was appropriate and important, but we didn't want to do something on the negative side. I mean, we've seen so many negative aspects of the pandemic and how it's impacted us. And the good news is that STEM is really the key effective response to the pandemic in so many ways. And we hear about the vaccines, which are critical, and other health interventions that are making an impact. But you could go through education and how we've been able to respond to the challenges around education, that STEM has been able to provide answers through virtual learning and other mechanisms. The ability for economies to continue to move forward has been greatly facilitated by STEM and also the environment. So we wanted to turn to that positive side and give our students an opportunity to look at what the pandemic has brought forward, but also to celebrate the ways in which STEM is providing answers and give them a chance to do an experiment on what's happened in their country and how can that STEM be used as a response mechanism, and then allow for the type of collaboration that we love to foster across countries to look at the pandemic and the response that STEM can provide. So that was one element that we just felt was really needed in terms of the program. But we also importantly wanted to go back to what First Global has been about, which is the use of your hands and brain to create really cool robots. So we did want to include that as an element this year. We're providing the kits. Look forward to challenges that will be able to be done around using robots that the teams build. And then the last item was really something that came from UNICEF, the great UN agency that's so committed to children and their lives around the world. They had done an experiment in Kazakhstan last year where an all-female team built what's called a CubeSat. It's a small satellite that they were able to get up into the air using a balloon and program to do different things. And UNICEF, and this was amazing to me as a new person to First Global, came and said, look, your organization has the reach around the world to high school age students. Would you consider taking this up as a challenge for your students? And we were very enthusiastic about taking that on and including it. So we're providing the materials to do that, and we look forward to see what our students are able to do with that part of the challenge this year.
Yeah, for sure. And going back to this with the pandemic, it's definitely the most ubiquitous experience that I ever thought would exist in my lifetime, and to incorporate it in such a positive way for students all around the world is really inspiring. And in addition to that, I'm really excited to see what our students who hopefully are listening to this come up with this year. Yeah, so next, obviously, I'm pretty excited about that. You're pretty excited about that as well. So I'm going to pop the question, though. What are you most excited for in terms of this year's First Global Challenge?
Yeah, I think, I'm just thrilled that we have gotten so many teams to come forward and participate. The pandemic isn't over. It's still having its effects around the world. And we need to accept that as part of those life frustrations that I mentioned earlier that can be, a burden. But the resilience of our teams is amazing. And I'm just really excited to see what they're able to do in each of those three areas and that they're able to come up with. And the Cube satellite part of it is an experiment, admittedly, for us. We've done a lot of the, shall I say, on the ground robots in prior competitions extremely successfully. This is a chance to go in a little different direction, literally up into the air. And if we can, ultimately see that we're capable of doing this type of experiment, then I'm interested to see how that could play into our program in the future of doing things, interesting things, again, with Cube satellites, any of these number of things that could add another dimension, if you will.
Yeah, and speaking of the future, what are the plans for 2022? Could you possibly give us a little bit of a sneak peek?
Yeah, I have to be careful here and not get out ahead of ourselves. And again, I don't want to be coy, but respectfully of the pandemic, everything is signaling that next year we'll be in a different situation globally than we are today. That we'll truly, hopefully, be able to see the type of ability to travel that would make an in-person event for First Global possible. I'm extremely optimistic about that, but this pandemic sometimes has surprises. So let's see what happens there. But I'd like to say to our supporters and teams out there that we're going really strongly ahead with planning towards having an in-person event next year, looking in that sort of July, August, October timeframe, which is where we've had in prior years tremendously successful events in the US, in Mexico City and Dubai, looking at doing it in a new location and not ready to reveal where we're going to land yet. But again, stay tuned, and I hope to be able to say more about this even, at the end of our season this year and give our teams a real glimpse of something exciting to come.
Certainly looking forward to that. And finally, a lot of our listeners are young students who hopefully might be interested in pursuing a career in STEM. How do you think these challenges will help equip students for that? And what is one piece of advice you'd like to give our audience listening right now?
Yeah, I think at this stage of their lives, I hope that our students, if they take anything away from this season and really what we do, is that STEM can be fun, that you can do something that is, you're not only, expanding your brain and learning and skill set and all that, but you can enjoy it. And it can be something that will be fun for you to do throughout your life. And ultimately, if as I do, I hope that they go into STEM careers, they will find that the super cool things that they've done in the first global program are the super cool things that they can do out there in their careers. And I've worked for more than a decade, as I mentioned, in the biopharma space. I've seen what science and technology can do to help make our lives better, and in many, many, many instances save lives. But all of these other STEM fields are just tremendously worthy in terms of what they're capable of helping us accomplish. So if you want to go into a field that you not only can be empowered by, have fun with, but also have the greatest impact, I think STEM is where you can go. And you can not only understand that you've sort of taken your life in an extremely positive direction, but you've been able to impact the lives of others in that same positive way through manifold means. So that's sort of my pitch and hope for our students, and really look forward to see how things go this season, but all the really, truly amazing things that I know our teams will bring forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you for answering all of our questions, and we look forward to this season.
Yeah, thank you, Emery.
Thank you so much to Jeff for answering all of our questions and giving such great advice. Now, I also want to give some reminders from our newsletter this past week. First, this season we'll be featuring a section called From Challenge to Innovation, where you guys will be highlighting challenges communities around the world have faced and how you guys have combated those challenges by innovating solutions. We strongly encourage you and your teams to send in submissions by emailing a description and images to press@first.global, and you can find more details in the newsletter. Second, if you're still interested in becoming a volunteer judge and are above the age of 18, you can register to be a judge with the form in our last newsletter or emailing volunteer@first.global. Third, if you're interested in joining the Global STEM Corps, which is a program that connects advisor teams composed of student robotics teams, university students, or groups of professional engineers with our national teams, make sure to sign up. You can find out more information at first.global/GSC. And if you have any questions, please email gsc@first.global. Now, finally, and as you all know, today marks the launch of our 2021 First Global Challenge, Discover and Recover. So here's some words from our founder, Dean Kamen, to close us out of this episode and launch us into the season.
Greetings, everyone. I'm excited that today we are kicking off the 2021 First Global Challenge. Discover and recover. It's been a horrific year around the world dealing with this pandemic. But that might be what helps bring the whole world together. You have a common issue to deal with. This pandemic is everywhere. We're hoping that by making the theme of this year's challenge to discover and recover, we're going to have a global network of young people that are enthusiastic to work together and use science and technology to solve this and all the other problems the world will be facing. Though, as you now know, we are not going to be gathering in person this season, we should all recognize this is a great opportunity to increase the cooperation in our global network to solve the problems that inevitably your generation will have to solve. STEM really is the tool that will allow you to take knowledge and information and learn how to employ it to solve the critical problems that we all need solved. So have a lot of fun, do a lot of great work, continue to build our global collaboration, and I do look forward to seeing you all in person sometime soon.